So this week we are going to be making a crosscut sled. But before we get to that, I wanted to address something that I see a lot on social media. As you can imagine, I'm a hobbyist woodworker. So I have follow a lot of pages so I can learn things and I can follow through on those things. And one of the things I've noticed by looking at them, I see a lot of this. You're not a real XYZ because you don't have this tool or you don't have this skill or you're doing it this way or you're doing it the wrong way. Or my favorite is only amateurs do it that way. Look, whether you're a woodworker, you're a mechanic, you knit, you paint, you sew. I have a Cricut next door that I make vinyl decals for my son's bedroom and for t-shirts and for cups. Look, at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're a maker. And don't let anybody ever put you down for doing that. You have a skill set that a good portion of the population doesn't have. I'm no Jason with Bourbon Moth or Jonathan Katz Moses or Mark over at the Wood Whisperer. These guys are legends. I watch their videos. They've been doing this for decades and they're really good at what they do. But one of the things I really enjoy about all of them is that they are very humble and if you watch the progression of their videos, you can see where they just started out and they're just learning things. So don't ever be discouraged by it. Just ignore it. Pick up the skills that you want to do and learn from it. So keeping with that, this week on my Facebook page, and I'll link it down below in the video, I am putting up a post with a hashtag that says show me your work. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you make. Whatever your chosen medium is, I want to see what you do. So if you're so inclined, head over to my Facebook page, find the post, and go ahead and show me a picture of what your work is. I want to see it. So the coffee's great this morning. Let's get to it. But be kind, be humble, and more importantly, have fun. This is my old Crosscut sled. It was the first one I had ever made and has treated me well over the last 8 years, but it has some water damage and has warped, so it's time for an upgrade. I decided the new one was going to have a few upgrades, so I went to Amazon and purchased a T-track stop, 2 hole down clamps, and 2 4-foot pieces of extruded T-track. I will add the links to the Amazon products in the description of the video. As it so happens, I have a bunch of scraps of poplar ply 3/4 inch from a previous project earlier last year. As you can see, I didn't store it correctly, so it's a bit wonky, but once it gets glued up to the 90-degree angle of the crosscut sled, I'm not really worried about it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this in half, 5 inches on either side, and I'm going to laminate them together to create enough bulk for the front fence and back fence of the crosscut sled. When I was cutting these down, I was afraid the height of the fence wasn't going to be sufficient, so I cut a second shorter piece, I believe around 10 inches. I will laminate to the top of the back fence later on. It's glue time. If you remember, I'm a bit of a slob when it comes to using glue, and I didn't want to destroy my shirt, so here I am going for the shop apron I'm supposed to be wearing, but always forget. Styling. And it's at this point I realized my first mistake. I envisioned the T-track stop riding along the top of the fence, but quickly realized the stop wasn't long enough and material could get under the stop, rendering it not usable. To make the fence shorter wasn't going to be safe, as it would put my hands closer to the blade and could have resulted in unsafe cuts. So I decided to put the T-track on the face of the fence. This allowed the stop to reach the bottom of the fence. In the end, this worked out to be much better. I also decided to add that extra top piece to the fence, making it higher to remind myself, no fingers go here, as this is where the blade would be coming through. It's time to cut down that T-track. I looked it up and researched it and discovered that normal wood blades are perfectly fine to use to cut extruded aluminum. Who knew? I also learned that pen marks don't show up well on blue extruded aluminum. So I found some electrical tape and I marked where my cut was going to go. Right about... Hey there, buddy. Wear your safety glasses. Good thing the QA guy wasn't around to yell at you. Much better. After carefully measuring where I wanted the track to land on the face, I used my router with a 3/8 dado bit and a fence to make the first pass. Because the track was 3/4 inches, I had to do it once, reset the fence, and go again. Now time to break this down to make the base of our crosscut sled. After setting up a fence, I made my very first cut. Once I was done with the first cut, I took it over to the table saw to do one final cross cut, and I ended up with a piece 27 by 27. And now it was time to figure out where the T-track was going to go on the bed of the crosscut sled. The reason for the T-track on the crosscut sled is for the hold-down clamps. I start out by measuring where the blade would pass, exactly in the middle, and then 4 inches from there. This gave the hold-down clamps the ability to reach right up to the blade if needed. After that, I repeated the exact same steps as I did for the T-track on the fence. I installed the T-track using the screws provided by the manufacturer. However, it was not enough meat left in the wood after routing out the dado for the T-track, so I had to nip those with a Dremel. Could have used the angle grinder, but that seemed like a bit of an overkill. After I installed and ground down the screws, I tried the T-track and there wasn't enough bite left to the screws, and I didn't feel comfortable using it that way. The last thing I need is a hold-down clamp to pull the T-track up, and the next thing I know, there's a hold-down clamp and a T-track flying at my face. So just to be safe, I decided to epoxy down the T-track in addition to the screws, just to be on the safe side. I know this doesn't mean that I can reuse it if I ever want to pull it out, but I'm okay with sacrificing it for safety. I decided, like many people who make crosscut sleds, to round over the bump in the fence so it doesn't look so blocky. I did this by using the edge of a paper plate to make a circle identical on both sides and sliced it away using the jigsaw. Now it's time to make the rails for the underside of the crosscut sled that will ride in the miter slots of the table saw. I start by getting some precise measurements. So here I am, I'm using hard maple for the rails. It's really important to use a hardwood and not a soft one. This will ensure that the rails maintain their shape and the crosscut sled will not wander around the table as you are using it. Now with the rails cut, it was time for the infamous penny trick. I've seen this on so many videos and it works really well. The gist of it is this: you put 2 cents in the miter slot to elevate the rail so it's just higher than the table saw. You set your fence at exactly where you want the edge of the bed to be. You then line up your rails, dab a few drops of CA glue on the rails, and the accelerator on the back of the base of the sled. Drop it in, push it down, slide it out. This will glue the rails precisely where they need to be every single time. I left just a little overhanging the edge. I could say I did this on purpose, but no, not really. Oops, nothing a flush saw can't clean up. I then countersink several holes and screw the rails into place using 3/4 inch wood screws. With the pieces complete, it was time to assemble. I stopped by screwing the back fence in first. This doesn't need any particular squaring up, so it's the easiest. I attached the front fence in the same way that I attached the back one, but I only used 2 screws. The first thing I need to do in aligning the crosscut sled is to see where the blade is so I can square it up against the fence. With the fence temporarily screwed in, it was time for that satisfying first cut. I did it in 2 as to not overload the blade, but I was able to get it all the way through. I cannot stress how important this part is. It's imperative that your fence be at 90 degrees to your blade. I use a speed square and I will likely go back to this again more accurately, but here is a good example. I unscrew one of the 2 screws holding the fence and adjust accordingly. Once I am happy where it is, I screw the fence to the table permanently. And that's it. I got a new crosscut sled, so let's look at what those accessories are for with a sled video.